Hey guys, I'm here with Deepak Shukla. He's my friend from the UK. So he's a bit of a digital nomad. He's running an agency right now. I think it's in the first year, he's got up to £100,000, all of which has been built from cold outreach. So I'm super interested to hear his story, how he got to where he is today, and why the sudden push at this time of his life. So, my man,
Yeah.
excited to have you here. Let's jump into it.
Hey, brother. Thank you for the intro. Yeah, no, well, first of all, I'll say it's £85,000 we did year one. So 110 US. We're at the stage where we should do at least 120, 130 year two at the current rate of assuming that I didn't grow. But with if I factor in growth, then I'd like to try and double it. Whether that will happen, I don't know. I've got specific remits around which I want to build the business, which is I don't want to work more than 20 hours a week maximum. So we're looking at 5 hour days. The moment I go beyond that, it means that my business, it doesn't mean that I'm working too hard, because of course I work more hours than that, but it means that I'm not running the business efficiently. And that I'm not finding appropriate ways to scale productivity, but of course to still deliver to my clients, because you can't build a successful business without keeping the clients happy. So one of the means, of course, with how to work out, well, how do I get to, just how do I grow real fast? Ultimately, everyone kind of talks about what I call FFR, which is friends, family, referrals. That's where a lot of kind of businesses start with, which is friends, family, referrals, and then kind of moving from there. Or historically, people will have typically had experience in an industry and then will have picked up one or two what I call marquee clients, meaning they leave, a lawyer leaves a law firm, sets up as a solicitor, takes a client with him, and there's corresponding examples of that in any area, whether you're talking SEO, Facebook ad agencies, or copywriting, whatever it might be. In my instance, I turned 30 last year. I'm 31 now. August 2016, so we're in 18 now. So sorry, Happy New Year, everybody, if you care, no, or whatever. And I, in the middle of having kind of well, I say a midlife crisis, but call a life crisis, let's say. Well, that assumes I'm going to live till 120. Not going to. I was like, right, let me. I was in the middle of doing an application to the British Special Forces. I kind of withdrew from that. Got 9 months in. I did not enjoy the experience at all. And I was thinking, what do I do? And I've always had kind of an interest in marketing. So I thought, let me go in. So the specific criteria was the issue that I was like, oh, I don't really know anybody. I've still to date never sold to anyone. I've sold to one of my family once for like about $500, and that was it. But myself, being British Indian and from a working class family, my friends and family are all kind of penny pinchers, so I was never going to make any money off my friends and family anyway. So that's where, as you said, cold outreach comes in. I'm at a stage right now where I send maybe three to 400 emails per day. And it's only actually now, ironically, that I'm beginning to send to friends and family a year or 15 months after starting the business, which is kind of relatively odd. Cold outreach probably accounts for 30% of my income. It's growing more, but all of the work that I bought in has been, well, outreach that's been cold. It's just when I say cold outreach, 30%, it's specific to email. I think that, I mean, there's a lot within it. I think that it's, there's, trying to think of the best way to describe it. My process with learning how to do cold outreach, let's start there, because I knew nothing about it, was I hired a lead generation agency to run emails for me. I paid them $1,500 a month to, I think, they're still actually working for me. I looked at what they were doing and I thought, I can do that. And I could maybe do it better. What actually happened was that I hired them. Everything seemed fancy front end. I spoke to kind of a British-based account manager, and they sent me the copy, and they'd clearly sent it to the Philippines or something like that. It wasn't written by a native English speaker. That frustrated me. I rewrote their entire copy. My leads started to come in significantly better, and I thought, oh, okay, this doesn't seem that complicated. So I guess my advice to anybody is I think it's just a case of getting down and dirty. And I think it's a case about planting a flag, like putting your stake in the ground. And that really comes to spending a little bit of money. What does the money bring? The money brings kind of commitment. This is more particularly so probably in the case of people that struggle sometimes to do things they're afraid of. If you have a
This
habit of
seems
doing
to be a ongoing philosophy with you, with whatever you seem to be doing.
Yeah. I find that, incentives by either spending money or having money to lose have always helped me massively. So, I paid out probably around $5,000 for bets I've lost in the past. Like, well, I said I'd do something and I've not done it, and I had to pay a friend, and it really, really pisses me off. Like just swinging my mate like $200 or $300, and if you scale that up to $5,000, that's a lot of bets I failed. But it's probably bought me 10x that because of all of the learnings. And when I say the learnings, it's the emotional learning. Intellectually, we're not talking about complex, artificial learning or neuro-linguistic, we're not talking, for example, code. The fundamentals of sending an email to somebody ultimately are not that complicated. You find their business address, you plug it into your Gmail, and you email the motherfucker. And then from there, whether it gets rejected by spam or they say no or they don't respond, that becomes your initial point of learning. And from there, that's where you begin to look at, well, how can I scale cold outreach? How can I send it to 50 people a day? How do I appropriately do research? And I think that, there's tools now that assist people. You have, let me think. Of course, you have Hunter.io, which is quite a popular one. You could just Google. What I would do, or what I did, was I Googled Hunter.io, and then I Googled Hunter.io alternatives, and then I tried them all once, and I thought this one seems cool. And then I looked for email scrapers. In principle, they looked great. In practice, they were shitty. So then I started to look at like agencies such as SaaS softwares. FindThatLead.com's one, LeadMind.net's another one, Elusify is another one. To begin, and I presume that they use scraping tools better than I, and then you pay them, a service that plugs out, that pushes out emails. Then you need to use a bulk email verifier, because don't ever believe any email that you ever get is actually going to work. So then I'd search for cheap bulk email verifiers. There'd be a 50% drop-off rate in some of these emails I get. You get together a list, and then you can hire a VA, go to Upwork, $5-10 per hour VA, make sure they're native English speaking. These people exist. Just hire from South Africa like I do, and then you can leverage the conversions and currency rates, and get them to clean up lists. And from there, that's kind of the fundamentals of how I began approaching cold email. And there's of course lots of little steps in between. How do you write the copy? How do you ensure that you get the open rates higher? How do you but right in the beginning, if you sell websites, go to a shitty insurance agency website, or go to a real estate, Google real estate agencies in your area, look at someone who's got a shitty website and just try sending 10 of them an email, and that's your flag for me. And you tell someone like yourself, you're like, dude, if I don't BCC you into 10 emails that I send today, I have to send you $100 tomorrow. And I would much rather email 10 people I don't know than send you $100. So that's for me like critical in making sure you actually action stuff. And that's how I've approached all of the growth. Same thing with Upwork. Upwork brought in probably a significant proportion of my revenue year one, maybe I think $20,000 to $30,000 was Upwork. And again, it was the same as outreach, and working out what are the copy, how do I build the right profile. And it's all of these little incremental steps in my experience, lots of micro failures. I've been banned from a couple of classified ad sites. I think my angel list profile has been banned. I'm banned on Quora. So you look at all of that and you'd be like, whoa, you just don't know what the fuck you're doing, Deepak. But for me, it's all been part of the principles of trying to understand how to operate. And equally, I know other guys that are banned on LinkedIn, banned on this account, banned on that account. And some of these guys are doing really well within the marketing space because they've not been afraid to kind of fail.
Breaking the mold, really starting to see where you can push the boundaries.
Exactly.
It sounds very much like you've got a growth hacker mindset in many ways, but I'm trying to work out where did you get this way of thinking from? Was this very methodical? Where did I start? What's the next thing I need to do? What's the next thing I need to do? Does that
Yeah,
come
I
from
think that.
a previous career, or
Sorry, what was the question? Does it come from?
does this way of thinking come from your previous careers, or the way you brought up?
Yeah, I think that I think it's part of it's been my upbringing. You know, I've come from like a very my dad kind of was my dad is a lorry driver at an airport. He drives heavy goods vehicles. My mum works at the supermarket, but they and no buts, and rather when I wanted, for example, more than my £5 per week pocket money, which couldn't even buy me a cinema ticket when I was like 13, 14, they're like, well, that's what we can afford. And even if we could afford more, that's all we're going to give you, because why can't you go out and earn it yourself? And I think that from that age, and that was around 13 or 14, it was just always the case that it was like, well, Deepak, if you want more money to go out with your mates, you have to figure out a way to make money yourself. And, you know, for up until from 14 to 24, I'd say I followed kind of the employment route. I was like, okay, get a job. And at that stage, I ended up getting a paper round. I think I did the paper round. And then I quickly worked out the second week in is like, right, if I dump these all in the trash bin, I can still basically get paid. So then I used to like dump half of the leaflets rather than, and then I got found out about 2 months later, but by then I was like, right, I've already made some money. And then I started to work for £2.50 per hour at my local car garage, just helping I was the MOT assistant. So I just flick on the lights on and off, turn the key in the ignition, check a serial number. And I did, and there's been so many instances of that. And I think that like forcing scarcity is a way to perhaps do that. So when I say scarcity, it's like, and again, it comes back to, you know, whatever the kind of codification that people use, everyone's got them. But negative incentives for me are huge. It was like, well, if I want to even go to, you know, take a girl on a date when I was like 16, 17, is like, Deepak, you got to do it using your own money. Because, you know, my parents grew up in an environment where they're working 100 hours a week just so that they could give us an education. But, you know, I've still been born in a Western world. I still want to go out and enjoy myself, and I still want to do all these things. And it was just a case of figure it out.
Right. It's cool. So 24, it's kind of getting over this whole when you say corporate, what kind of jobs were you working?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2021, you finished school in the UK, university. I went off to, the longest time I had a job was like 6 months, but I still managed to have like 23, 24 jobs. I did all kinds of things post finishing university, which was, I worked at NatWest, which is a retail bank, front, like a teller, where someone comes in and says, I'd like to make a deposit of 100 quid, or I'd like to put my take-ins for my flower shop. And then you try and upsell them credit cards and stuff. I was great at selling them, but then I would always not balance the till, I remember. So I get in trouble because they're like, Deepak, like £600 has gone missing from your till. And I was like, well, I clearly haven't stole it. And then I'd spend ages trying to figure out, you know, and it was like poor math, which is ironic because I went to become an accountant. But, and I hated that as well. So basically at 22, I think around that age, it was 2009 or 2010, I think. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship as a space or as an area. I had a family that still are, minus perhaps my uncle, but at that stage he was still in employment. I had no one around me that was entrepreneurial. Everyone had followed a route whereby you work hard and in a job, and then you know, that's how that's your place in society, and that's how you succeed. But my problem was that I didn't cope well in any of those kinds of environments because I got bored quickly, and there's, you know, there was no space there. You know, as I'm sure the audience well knows, there's that issue of how do you make, you know, exponential leaps instead of incremental, and even then there's this bureaucracy and framework you've got to go by, and I feel like entrepreneurs are much more suited to the jungle, if you will. It's like, right, there's some very, very loose operating rules, but ultimately you can go out and do what the fuck you want, and you can kind of figure out as you go along. And that's, you know, my 20s, to be honest with you, were spent traveling. I spent several years abroad, where just kind of fucking around because I wanted to enjoy my life. And, you know, I spent my time marathons, doing a lot of sport, and just doing different things, dude. And I think that that's certainly been my route, and I've blathered, and I've not really even answered your question, or perhaps I've answered 10.
I think you has a few. So, okay, that's cool. So you got there and you been doing this for a while. You kind of had hobby kind of businesses. You're telling me about it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, hobby businesses. So left Deloitte, started running. People could look it up. Deep Impact Recordings. I was a rapper for a couple of years, which was fun. I was on like national TV here in the UK, and I was awarded Artist of the Month for a certain region, and that was an interesting space. I think that I did that for like 2 years, and then I remember I shut down my recording studio because I had two of them when I got really hammered with my girlfriend. And then I left my MacBook that had all of my clients' music on the bus. And then when I was drunk, and then like basically that like erupted 70% of my clients overnight because I didn't have any backups of their music. And I remember like that being like, well, that's the end of that then. And
The Tinder profile. Birmingham's best rapper.
exactly. It was funny as that, I was like the Indian dude is like, right, I want to be a rapper. I remember going to fucking Deloitte, dude, and being like I want to leave Matt Ellis, this dude who was like earning £750,000, £1.5 million bonus, highest earning tax partner. And I remember walking into his office like 3 months into my graduate program and being like, I'd like to, hand in my resignation. He was like, well, why, etc. What can we do to convince you? Because it costs them more to hire somebody than it does to, all that stuff. And I was like, I want to go and become a rapper. And I remember that kind of like weirdness that I received, but that was the adventure. So it went from rapper, recording studio, Deep Impact Recordings, went to Gobsmackers, which was a tuition agency. That's when the studio shut down. I needed some cash. And my friend was like, I think you make a good teacher. Why don't you try teaching? And then I went off to an agency and I was teaching this French kid who we're now friends with on Facebook, LinkedIn, because he reached out to me. He was like 10 years younger than me at the time. He's like, hey man, I'm at university, and I was like, oh, whoa. But I just remembered that they were paying me, and that was that space was my first real journey into entrepreneurship. I remember they were paying me they were paying the agency were being paid £36, and I was being paid 18 because the parents shared that with me. And I was like, they're just fucking collecting the paycheck once a month. So then that was like, why don't I start an agency? And then, I set up a simple like Wix website, put together a load of YouTube videos and ordered some flyers and started kind of handing them out and stuff. And from there, from there, there's been a mishmash of different things. I think that what happened was that I turned 30 and I'm in kind of a serious relationship now. And a combination of turning 30 and realizing that I want some semblance of stability, especially as all my siblings are married and I took the approach, because before I was trying to run kind of a latest and greatest tech startup, and you know what, I'm not a tech guy, and they always failed because development was either outsourced, I paid someone, and it didn't go as I envisioned it would, and the two startups I tried both failed, and then I kind of lost my appetite for really going at something with any sense of vigor. So I just did what I call the side business, which is always a tutoring agency. It made like £2,000-3,000 a month. And when you're 25 and you've got no assets and you're just traveling by yourself and you're working like 15 hours a week and you get £2,000-3,000 profit, you can live on that and you can live well. You know what I mean? You just go to hostels. Or even I was renting like abroad, but it was enough to just enjoy myself. But there wasn't anything beyond it. You know what I mean? And I didn't get any sense of legacy from being like, what do you do? I run a successful tutoring company. So I say it out loud, and no disrespect to anyone that does that, but it didn't feel like that would be my legacy. So I had never any emotional investment attached to it. And that was a large problem because it was just kind of burn and turn.
So well-paid freelancer, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't, I don't know, as I get older, I feel that legacy is becoming a little bit more important to me than it used to. My 20s were just about, let's party, party, date, be in relationships, do sports, do therapy, and see, and kind of, see what happens after that.
It's cool. Very cool. So hit the 30s, you can realize it's time to go hard. I need to pick up something. What how do you make decision to go to marketing, and what was the process from there? How do you get the first sale? How do you start realizing that it's time to put a process together to get more sales?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good questions. So why marketing? Because the core of the small businesses that I'd run previous to that through my 20s, at the core of it ultimately was that I was good at selling, and that I thought, let me run with that. And everything else that follows, I could kind of figure out along the way. And I do enjoy marketing. I've always enjoyed marketing. At the core, the reason for being able to perhaps switch from running a recording studio to running a tutoring agency to being a careers coach, the core of all of it was me. And right, Deepak, you need to sell yourself, and you need to position what you're selling, and then if you can and when you can raise the rate. And 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 that, to be honest with you, hasn't really changed in marketing in general today. You need to, agencies ultimately, unless they're faceless. But Neil Patel's a great example of it. He makes more money by funneling people from his personal brand, as he speaks about, into Quick Sprout and Crazy Egg, and it's the era of personalization. So that was why marketing. How? Good question. So I think I really like a saying, and this is not verbatim, but it's to paraphrase something that Paul Graham mentions. He's like, if you want to grow and grow quickly, or if you're growing quickly, expect chaos. And I think that that's a really good kind of tenet that people should live by, in respect of, certainly for me, how is it that I've got my first sales? People put ads on Craigslist every day requesting someone who needs marketing help, for example. So I got a couple of first sales through Craigslist. I think the biggest singular practical advice I would have for anybody is that there are people looking for your skills that publicly advertise that are looking for them every day. It's not really dependent, not in marketing, not in the world of marketing. It's not a hidden market. It's quite open, to be honest with you. You see adverts on LinkedIn, Gumtree, Craigslist, Upwork, Guru, whatever the relevant platform is, Facebook groups, Slack groups, LinkedIn. I'm sure it's everywhere, but you will find people that say, hey, I'm in need of someone who can help me with X. And really, I would say start there and go for what I call the low-hanging fruit. That is the low-hanging fruit. And scrap. So what do I mean practically by scrap? I mean, even if it's on a shitty forum and you think that this guy's never going to have more than $20, even if that's the case, you should wait until he actually makes the offer before you make that assumption. I got a $2,000 a month client from Twitter. I got a $2,500 a month client from Craigslist. And I have a lot of people that I know that are too arrogant to even look at work such as that, because they've got a certain sense of how they should act or operate as a business. And I think that if you dispel with that, especially in the instance, as I said, that you're not relying on the FFR or FFRL, even friends, family, referrals, and then legacy, which is legacy clients that you've grandfathered in from experiences that you've already had, and that invariably comes from referrals anyway. If you're operating in an environment where I want to be a flower seller, Deepak, and I've spent my last 10 years as a car mechanic, I'd be like, well, you don't know anyone who you're going to sell flowers to, so you have to go and find out what's out there. And that's really my best first suggestion. So if that comes attached with, well, create a profile for Upwork, we'll create a profile for this. And the other thing I'd also say in combination with that is expect failure and be comfortable with it. Be comfortable recognizing that if you make 10 applications and they all just get rejected, the key is not to stop, which is obvious, but the key is to adapt how you apply to those jobs. So the problem is not them or the platform. It's not true. That's just bullshit. It's not that, Craigslist only has shitty people, but Craigslist is still a multi-million-dollar business. Craigslist still has people that, you know, need a videographer that are like, I can't find anyone, I don't know. So let me just put an advert on Craigslist and see what happens. And, you know, that $50 work might lead into a $2,000 wedding, for example. I've got, you know, I ran my tutoring agency making £2,000 or £3,000 a month solely from Gumtree, which is a classified ad site. I tried 20 different things, and the thing that converted like no other was Gumtree. So I thought, well, why not bother? And people will say that, well, there's no money on Gumtree. Gumtree has a lot of bottom feeders. So I think that a lot of people have this bottom feeder mentality as well, meaning that, well, if people list jobs, then they're not going to have much money. But that's true. But there's also people that have a lot of money that want to use directories because they're easier, and also because what it gives them access to is publicly verifiable profiles. I think we're entering into an era where the more savvy marketer or hiring manager will recognize that I can't believe any case study on anybody's website because it's just a piece of written text. Ultimately, I can't. What can I truly believe? And that's where public profiles and, again, brand comes into play. That if you can attach, you know, certainly for me now, Upwork has generated maybe $20,000, $30,000 for me, which was real scrappy. But to be honest with you, it's probably generated $60,000 for me. Why? Because I show people outside of Upwork that look at my Upwork profile. You know, I'm $100 an hour on there, whatever it might be. But I'm a legit agency. I'm for real. Even if and that has worked very well with what I call the skeptics. And there's a lot of them out there that, you know, want to do some due diligence, and that has really narrowed down my sales. So I'd say that has been instrumental in how I've kind of grown the agency.
Okay. Now you've got plans on taking it to £300,000 in the next couple of years. Can you break down the numbers of how that plays out?
Yeah, sure. So how that plays out is ultimately what I want, very practically, is I want 10 clients that will pay me £3,000 a month. That's to be honest with you, that's more than obviously 300 grand a year. That's 12 times 3, which is 36. So 10 clients pay me £3,000 a month over 12 months is £360,000. Now, realistically, I have to think a couple of things. For me, it's like, right, what is the core service that you're going to sell, Deepak, that people will buy for £3,000? And there's two core things that I do, which is SEO and lead generation. Now, as I've begun to chop off services to focus on a couple of specific things, because I can then up the quality and up the amount of time and care I give to those clients, and also position myself to be a lot more niche. So practically, in terms of how that lead generation is happening, same principle. I spent 10 months being a full service digital marketing agency. That meant I was building lead pages. I was building a click funnel. I was running a Facebook ad. What I found was that I became very stretched. It was what I call, and it's something that I learned from another guy, Tome Aron. He runs Poptin, but he had this principle of high touch versus low touch. So he was like, look at your services when you begin, because everyone's going to scrap, and you'll quickly discover that there's things that require a high level of you, and there's other things that require a lot less level of you, and you need to find that sweet spot between. And this is just in the agency world, right? Inherently, agencies are very difficult to scale. Inherently, agencies have, you know, human personalities that drive it, meaning that agencies have significant challenges. And it's a case of how can you scale something? And the things that I can scale well, that I can do well, that don't require, for example, a level of day-to-dayness with clients, is search engine optimization, as well as lead generation, because ultimately I run an outreach campaign and clients want a certain level of leads to follow up on. So there's very clear KPIs involved. It's like, well, has my organic traffic increased? Have you delivered, you know, 20 leads that are of this profile? And that's relatively a lot more black and white than Facebook ad campaigns, for example. I found we live and die by the sword. You have 3 shitty days in a row and your client blows $5,000. But it's not even that. You have 3 shitty days in a row, your client's going to be ringing you immediately to ask you what's going on, what do you need to do. So it requires like a higher level of touch, human touch involved. So then that's why I chose those areas, because I can scale them better. And as to how to get to that figure, 10 clients at $3,000. At the moment, I've got 2 clients of my client set that actually pay me £3,000 a month. They have taken probably 4 months to find, because I have other clients that pay me £1,500 or, you know, £2,000, and I'm trying to bring in some stabilization at the higher end. But what's happening, as I narrow my services, I'm able to deliver more, and I'm able to, you know, provide more value ultimately. So that's how. And as to where did these clients come from, which is probably, you know, a next practical question that people want to know. One of them came from Upwork, which is great. He started on £1,500. He's gone to £3,000. He's been with me. He just went to £3,000 this month, but he's been with me 5 months, right? So, you know, that's been £10,000, £10,000 to £15,000. I'm hoping to keep him at 3 now. And I've only been able to take him to 3 now because I chopped off, or clients chopped me off. I had some clients that I didn't deliver the value because I was doing a bit of Facebook, I was doing a bit of copywriting, and I was just stretched. And I couldn't scale it very well. I couldn't get other bodies in the room, so to speak, that, you know, I could work with. The other person came from LinkedIn, because I had a LinkedIn post that went viral. It got 2.1 million views. That was about my mother working at Morrison's, which is a supermarket in the UK, nothing to do with SEO or outbound lead generation. And that has generated this client, which is actually converted. This is month 1, £3,000. We're going to continue. And then in parallel, I've got some of the other figures I've mentioned have come from cold email, as we've been discussing, because that was, you know, what I offer now. And that's kind of the breakdown. And I believe Upwork has still served me, so it will continue to serve me. LinkedIn is generating an income for me, so I'll focus on LinkedIn. And of course, I'm doing cold email, and it's going to be kind of that triumvirate of areas that kind of are my core focus in respect of generating new clients that ultimately hopefully come back, you know, in 2 months and tell you, you know, I've got 4 clients now at £3,000 a month, and you know, making sure I keep them happy so they become long-termers.
So right now, your time is spent purely between lead generation and client care?
Yeah, so my time now is managing and making sure we deliver on the search engine optimization. So I definitely spend, like right now, in terms of operational stuff, I spend 10 hours a week. I spend an equal amount of time on biz dev, which is basically which is sales, right? Because I want to get to the stage where I've got 10 clients of £3,000, but I couldn't give you a timeline as to how quickly I'll get there. But the idea is, as long as I'm making more money this month than I was last month, in respect of, you know, 10K this month, the next month 11.5K, the month after 11K, month after 13K, to ultimately try and get as close to the 30K a month figure as I can. And that's the plan
like
I've got.
The profile of who your messaging has changed and become more refined as you've gone through this.
Yes, no, it definitely has. So the profile has changed. I'm targeting businesses that are more established. Even on Upwork, when I send out requests, it's a combination of invites and requests. I do people that are verified. They've got verified payments that have spent at least $10,000 on Upwork, SEO and lead generation only. So my outreach actually has scaled kind of a bit significantly because I'm offering far less services. Meaning that, you know, before I could offer kind of anything to anybody, and I probably could get to maybe that figure faster if I was doing everything. But that's been my learning. I can't have a 10-hour work week if I'm doing everything. It just would mean I'd need employees, I'd need people management, and that doesn't allow me then, for example, I'm building an affiliate site on the side called Unsheath Reviews. We've got 30 YouTube videos. You know, I'm doing property investment, and it's only because I have a core 20 hours a week where it's like, right, build. And the other thing I think that's really important to ask yourself is, how can I over deliver? But here's the key factor. If someone's paying you, for example, £1,000, and your time plus the people that you pay in your team is, let's just say it's £500, so you've got a £500 profit margin, let's say 50%. A key question is to ask yourself, what could if I only had an additional £100 to spend, which is, you know, ultimately, you know, 20% of the profit you've got remaining at £500, what could I give to that client that he didn't ask for that would make him happy? And that's been really useful for me, because I agree to stuff. So let's just agree, I agree to 30 leads. I'll make sure now that I'll deliver 37. Because I know when times go bad, as sometimes they do, they'll stick with me. And my problem I've had, of course, with growth is churn. has also been higher than I want to, because I'm not delivering on all fronts. And I spent the last month consolidating, solidifying, and upping delivery so I can do more with the same amount of cash, if that makes sense.
It really sounds like your approach is transferable to any kind of business that is B2B mostly.
Yeah.
And does have that either high up front or some sort of recurring trail on their client value.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think so. I think it applies to anyone who does B2B. I think that ultimately you have to, and the other thing I think is also important is attach what you pay, a client pays you, to their own ROI. And I think sometimes that gets lost. A client will never pay you £5,000 a month it's not about SEO. It's not about lead generation. It's not about Facebook. It's not about any of that. It's like, Jose, I'm paying you £5,000 a month. So I have the hope that in 3 to 6 months, however long it takes, I'm earning 10, 15, even £7,000 a month. If I pay you and you generate more money than I pay you, then I'll always pay you. And there's going to be a grace period, because I trust that everything takes longer than you think it does, of maybe 2-3 months. But if it gets to 3 months down the line and I'm spending £5,000 a month and I'm only generating 3, ultimately I'm losing £2,000 a month. I'm not going to be a lifelong client for you. And I think, and I've been guilty of this. I think that got, in the beginning, when you scrap, that gets a little bit lost. And once you achieve a little bit of stabilization, then you can begin to really, I think I should have done that sooner. I should have attached what they're paying me to what the outcome is, and really think about it financially, because I think that the problem is that we sometimes think too much as technicians rather than as business owners, being like, I can build the sickest Facebook funnel for you ever. And I was like, dude, that's all good and well.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, exactly. People like bells and whistles, but they pay for the meat. And the meat is make me more money than I spend, and
I think
I'll
people
be with you
will
forever.
pay for bells and whistles, but they won't stick around because they don't know the difference. And that's where a lot of business owners themselves, they don't know the value of what their service are. They don't know what they should be charging. They don't know these things, because a lot of them are technicians. You got 90% failure rate of business in the first 3 years. Admittedly, most of those aren't your clients, but you are going to come across those people. And even businesses that are successful, a lot of them are successful by accident. So being in a position where you can make such a huge impact to the front end of someone's business, we need to be aware of what is your client worth to you? How many conversations do you need in order to convert someone into a client?
100%. And the nature of the game has changed very recently, because I've been watching a lot of sales videos to reposition my value. I've been watching Alex Berman on YouTube. I've been watching Stelio from Close.io. And this has been instrumental, because everyone has to fucking close. It doesn't matter what you're selling. If you're selling something that isn't an e-commerce product, if it's a program and you're involved as part of the sale, or one of your team is, then you have to establish value. And for me, what's been very interesting, and it's been a small change, I said, what's the value of a profit on a lead to you? And they'd be like, right, £300. And I'd be like, okay, cool. So then from that, it's been very easy to reverse. No, let's just say £100. Deepak, a lead is, I convert, and a profit is £100. And I'll be like, okay, how many people do you need to talk to convert at £100? And I'll say, I need to talk to 5 people. And I'll say, okay, so I'm going to assume for this that you're going to need to talk to 8 people, because that's just how it's going to be. We always overestimate in the beginning. So I'll say, right, so you need 8 leads, and that means 8 people are worth £100 to you. And I was like, okay, cool. So if you pay me £100 a month and I bring you 12 leads, that means that you should make at least £150. Or I bring you, and that means for every £100 you spend, you get £150 back. But give me 3 months to reach that number, because it will take us time to find the sweet spot. And when you kind of think of it in those terms of anything you do, and you attach your numbers to it, it's a little bit like a management consulting approach. And I haven't done this, and I should have done it sooner, but then it becomes much more of a no-brainer for the client, because it's like, well, you're telling me you're going to make me money, dude, and the numbers seem quite clear.
It also means you can know who you shouldn't take on.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's great for qualification. It's great for a lot of those things. And I think that's also, underneath all of that, guys, make sure that you focus on, certainly the way that I've done it is scrap, work out how to do it as you go along, Some will go well, some won't go well, because that's just the nature when it's new and you're still learning in parallel. Learn from your failures, learn from, of course, your wins. And then when you can afford to stop scrapping, because you've got enough money to keep your lights on, you've got enough money to take your girlfriend out for dinner at the weekend and to please your fucking Indian parents, in my case, you're doing something that's meaningful, then you can begin to become more strategic with saying, I'm not going to say yes to that work anymore. And I said no to around 6,000, well, around 3,000 or 4,000 pounds worth of recurring revenue in December. It was not a nice month, because I began to chop off, or people chopped me off, that were non-SEO and non-lead generation clients, because I just wasn't, my headspace wasn't there. They wanted a high level of involvement, and I was kind of skimming a little bit. And one, I gave up. Two, said, I'm not sure this is really working. What do you think? And rather than trying to save it, I said, I agree, to be honest with you. Let's say that we both tried and it's not quite working for us. And that's also important. I think the power of being like, you know what, are these clients? And I think that sometimes, and we just spoke about it off the call, I've taken on a bad client to help him with a website, and it's just, it's a bad idea all around. So I'm going to refund him now, I think, after this call.
Yeah, it's all all learnings and lessons. So we're also speaking of something else different. So in this all, you kind of realized a few things about yourself and the direction, the people you enjoy working with outside of the agency land. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. People I enjoy working. So did you say the people I enjoy working with outside of agency land?
Yeah, you're talking about lifestyle design and the kind of stuff you've done in your own life that's starting to become a reality now.
No, absolutely. So I think that it's a really good question. I mean, I like, here's the irony. I like working with people that are kind of fast moving. It's difficult. I like to have, there's two parts to this. I like to work with people that are fast moving, that value themselves, that have a learning, a healthy approach to learning, and have a healthy tolerance for failure, that like to admit when they make mistakes. I mean, this is what I look for more with people that I'm hiring, or like contractors that I'll bring in, or even virtual assistants that I'll bring in. Like contractors, virtual assistants, one or two people that are in the team that are contractors, but they function like employees ultimately. But in terms of outside of agency worlds, I think that, to be honest with you, it's difficult for me to tell you, because my focus is basically all agency world, because as you quite rightly said, I've got this £300,000 revenue figure, and it's like, how can I get there as fast as possible? But at the same time, part of me recognizes that I don't know how scalable this model is.
It sounds to me like agencies really get the revenue. It allows you to help people because you've got a skill there, but you don't really see it as your core focus. It's allows you to live the way it's a service.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's a
it is a business unit. Like you're treating it as a business. So how do we build this business to this point? Then how do I maintain it, and how do I start doing
exactly
things that you more at your core?
Absolutely. And what's at the core, dude, I want to climb, honestly, I want to climb Everest. I want to go back to do some military training. I want to continue getting tattoos. I want to help my girlfriend build her Pilates business, or I want to, there's like personal goals that I have. And I want to make sure that I can build this agency fast enough where I can sustain it, such that my clients are all really happy and they're like, Deepak, this is amazing. I'm only working 10 to 20 hours a week. I've hit that revenue figure. And then, to be honest with you, beyond that, I've got lots of different ideas. The order in which it'll happen, I don't know. And I think that that's, I think, if I was to give a learning to anybody listening, I think set yourself some parameters that force you to become inventive. And forcing creativity for me has been quite useful, because my figures aren't really that astounding. There's people that do more, definitely, etc. But what I do think is interesting is that I haven't come from the friends, family, referrals, or legacy background. I've come at it new, and I'm trying to develop it in such a way that it fits in that criteria, and that's been very powerful to try and unlock growth opportunities. So a lot of people would tell me, Deepak, you can't get anyone good for $5 an hour. It just doesn't exist. And I thought, well, why not? Let me try it. Let me try it. It took me 6 people. And now I've understand, now I go, for example, to Upwork. I go to native English speakers. I only look in the US and the Canada, Australia, South Africa. And I look for $5 hour virtual assistants who are American, and they exist and they're really fucking good. And that has changed my business in the last month and a half, because I'm like, wow, I can spend $200 a month with you, and you can give me 20 hours a month, 30 hours a month, and you are way better than the guys I was working with before. And a lot of people told me that it couldn't be done, but it can be done, because, as you said, they are technicians. They don't know their value. So they've assumed that their value should be $5 an hour. So I will pay them what they value themselves at, even if their value should ultimately be more. And there's, another example of, a potential, something that's helped me with growth, because a lot of people just live by the assumptions they read on the internet, which is also part of the reason why I think a lot of people kind of talk bullshit, because I think that, what's real and what isn't, these people do exist. I use them. They're on Upwork. It's great. And that allows you to scale so many things to make sure that they get the operation now done. And that wouldn't have perhaps necessarily happened if I, continued believing a lot of the assumptions that kind of you read about, like about what can be achieved and what can't be achieved.
Test the assumptions, test the norms, prove it wrong.
Exactly.
If people do want to learn more about you and your agency and what you're up to, what's the best place for them to connect?
Yeah, absolutely. Google Per Traffic, per like a cat, literally, that purrs, Per Traffic. If I know anything about what I do, we should come up. My name is Deepak Shukla. I'm sure, Joe's, you're going to probably put a link to it. But, my website, my company website and my site. But if you want to get a little bit of like social context, and just check me out on LinkedIn, I presume that will give you a fairer sense of where I actually personally update stuff, and I'll personally engage with you. The website, and of course is work. But yeah, those 3 places.
Epic. All right, guys, until next time, we'll see you all on the next episode.
See you guys. Thank you for having me on.